Hello, my name is Kam Johal and welcome to the show. Today we are in the esteemed company of a dear friend of mine who's an international motivational speaker. She's been awarded an OBE. She's an entrepreneur in her own right who's had many successful businesses. I'd like to welcome my good friend Kavita Oberoi to the show. Welcome, Kavita.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Thank you for having us at your wonderful house. Absolutely beautiful. So tell me, where did it all begin for you?
Where did it all begin? Well, I think for me, it began probably at the age of 2.
Wow.
So people say, are entrepreneurs born, or is it in the genes, or can you become an entrepreneur? And for me, it was certainly in the genes.
Okay.
So my father came to the UK in the 1960s to make his fortune, and his sole focus was to set up a business. And he came over here and he watched somebody plumb a bath, and he decided he was going to set up a plumbing business.
Oh, wow.
He was never going to do any of the handiwork. It was all a mastermind in the head. He called over his brother, who did a lot of the handiwork, and he did. He set up a very successful business, which is now 3rd generation.
Wow. Where was that?
So that was in Yorkshire, in Bradford.
Okay.
So I was born in Bradford, and I remember when I was born above a shop, which was the first retail outlet. And so every day I used to go downstairs. I had like very early lessons, and I used to go out with my father whenever I used to go out. My mum used to give me a little bottle, dress me in the best dress, and I've got great memories of going out with my father. And I remember in those days, he used to leave me in the car for hours, and then while he went to have his meetings, he'd never do that now. So my training really started early at that age. So for me, it was in the genes.
Wow. So before you started school,
yeah,
your father used to take you out?
Yeah, so what you have is you have a lot of subliminal lessons. You don't realise this. So it was nothing on purpose, it was just how it's happened. You know, I had an older sister and an older brother. And when my father came over here, he had to leave them with my mother in India. So there's a big gap.
Sure.
Big gap. And then I was like the first child who was born, you know, when he was able to afford to bring my mum over. I mean, to come here, he had to sell my mum's jewellery. He worked on the railways.
Wow.
And so he had to sell her gold to get here. And then when I was born, what he said was I was a lucky charm. That's when all the wealth started to come. I mean, you know, I remember him putting me on his Mercedes at the front, taking photos of me, because he said I was the one, and that's when his wealth really started to assemble. But you know, I all those things have an impact on you, and I remember actually at a young age going into the shop, serving customers. I know all about plumbing. All the copper fittings, everything, because I used to like going and serving those things because I could do those things, and you learn. So my lesson started early, but it was sort of a contradiction though, because in our family it was very strict. So men went to work, and the place for the woman was in the house.
Of course.
So, you know, there was all these things that were battling all the time. But that was my early sense of business. And, you know, my father was a real inspiration in terms of, you know, business.
Okay.
And obviously my mother, if it wasn't for my mother, you know, she was the one who battled, when I tell you more of my story, empowered me, battled against all the, you know, the taboo of women getting educated, etc. If it wasn't for her, then I wouldn't be here today.
Of course. So was there a contradiction in terms of, so your father thinks that you're the lucky charm, so does he then treat you differently, how girls were being treated at that time?
Well, I think obviously I was the younger one, wasn't I? I was a new child who'd been born. But then, so as I was growing up, it became very evident to me that my destiny was going to be very much like that of the girls in our family, and I mean extended family, cousins, etc. My older sister, she got married at 19, hardly any education, arranged marriage. So my cousins, they were all getting married very young. no education. It wasn't the thing to do.
Of course.
Girls not to be educated. And me, I was, I suppose, a bit of a rebel, you know, in that I wanted to break every rule. And I think entrepreneurs, that's what they are. They break every rule.
These are patterns, aren't they?
These are patterns, yeah.
Yes.
So for me, if somebody said you can't do something, I'm going to go and do it. You know, if there's something that I'm not supposed to do, that was me. So, you know, and a real anguish for learning. And I remember I wanted to go and learn the piano. I wanted to go and do different things. I just wasn't allowed. No, you're not doing this. You're not doing this. Girls aren't meant to do this. I wanted to go and do ballet and tap dancing. But in what I was very good at was getting my way. And I did go to ballet lessons and tap lessons, but my mum used to sneak me out of the house. My dad never knew
without his knowledge.
And then I started getting honours. I started getting all my certificates and everything. And like one day he found out, and then, you know, it just went mad. But then, you know what? Slowly, those barriers break and things become the norm, and then it becomes acceptable.
Sure.
And again, you know, it was just. It was fine as a child, obviously, you know, what I was doing. But then as I was going into teenage, etc., things were like, I knew that I felt this battle. You know, girls are not supposed to go to work. They're not supposed to be educated. And then, unfortunately, at the age of 15, my father died. Oh. So that was a really challenging time.
What was the cause of that?
Heart attack. And again, I think that was very much of his lifestyle. He was an entrepreneur. He built up a very successful business. He had a very fast lifestyle, the best diet, smoking, etc. And what he was only like, probably the age I am now, a couple of years older than I am. So he died. I mean, my mother was about 45. Wow. She had 4 children, because after myself, my younger brother was born. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 girls and 2 boys. Okay. My older sister and brother were married when he died, and there was myself and my younger brother. So
did your siblings all go to university or not?
Nobody went to university. So what happened is when I got to, you know, my father had died, and what I really wanted to do was to have an education. Mm-hmm. And I did my GCSEs, I did my A-levels, and I remember at the time as well, somebody had come and looked at my books and said to my mum, you know, she's only ever going to get a B in a chemistry. And if anybody ever says to you, you can't do something, you should take that as motivation. It really upset me at the time, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to really focus, and I'm going to achieve this. Drove me. So anything that people said I can't do or she's not good at, that's what drives me. So, and again, you know, if you think about entrepreneurs, challenges drive entrepreneurs. Sure. Challenges make entrepreneurs think even harder to achieve what they want to achieve. So I love challenges. You know, we're in COVID now, and that's a challenging time. But true entrepreneurs get over those challenges. So and I ended up getting a first-class degree in applied chemistry. You know.
Do you think you would have been allowed to go to university had your father been around?
Probably not. Now, the compromise I had to make, I wasn't allowed to go to university as such as leave home. Travelled every single day. I went to Huddersfield. We used to live in Bradford. I used to travel every single day back and forth. So I wasn't allowed to stay away. Yeah. But you know the other thing, what is important? Compromise. If you want to achieve anything, you have to compromise. Now for me, that was the compromise. Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, I really wanted to be a doctor, and I wasn't going to be allowed because it'd take 6-7 years. And what was a priority? Marriage. Yes, you're going to be too old to get married if you do medicine, and you might run off. So that was never going to be allowed. So, you know, for me, I picked chemistry, but I really felt the pressure. I didn't even feel like I was going to finish that degree, because every weekend I would be introduced to prospective husbands, because education was not the priority. No. It was getting married.
So whilst you're at university, your family's still trying to fix you up?
Yeah. Okay. Probably from the about age of 16 that happened.
Yeah. But a lot of us lived those kind of dual lives, didn't we? That we whether we went to university or college, we lived a life there. Yeah. And at home it was very different, wasn't it? And kids of today would never ever think how on earth did we get through those times. But we got through them, like you said, that we compromised and we gave up a little bit. And our parents gave up a little bit,
They
didn't
did,
they?
yeah. I think there's this generation are very uncompromising. I think we compromise, and we still compromise.
Yeah. I think the thing with that is, for me, is that we have a lot of our culture and our value systems that our parents brought with us.
Yes.
And of course, we've not always been able to instill that in our children.
Yeah.
So they're very much the next generation, obviously, as they are.
Yeah.
So I always think that sometimes we get the worst deal.
Yeah.
That we have to compromise with our children and our parents.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so, but it is what it is, isn't it? You know, we've got fantastic opportunities whilst we're here. So you don't get married, I presume, whilst you're still studying?
No, I didn't, and my degrees were aiming to finish about when I was 22. My mum's having kittens because I'm still not married, and I am now nearly finished my degree, as are the extended family, my brother, the whole extended family, you know, cousins and everyone. But you know, I managed to sort of push this out further, and then as I'm sort of in my last year, my mum just said to me, you know, we had scouted the whole country for prospective husbands, and even flew in planes to go and meet people in Boys in Ireland and all sorts.
Wow.
all pre-arranged. I hated it, absolutely hated every bit of it. You know, it got very frustrating because the family would say, what's the problem now? What's the problem now? And then my mum said, you know, did you not know anybody in at university or whatever? And as you know, they have to meet a certain criteria. It has to be the right background, all of this. Everything has to be exactly right, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I said to my mum, I said, I think there is probably one person, but I'm sure he's married now. We just talked about somebody in Derby, and my mum said, "Oh, Derby, you don't want to go to Derby."
How old were you then?
I was 22.
So at the age of 22,
yeah,
the family's struggling, saying she's going to get left on the shelf.
Yes.
And look at what's going on today.
I know.
Yeah, you would not dream of doing that to your own children, would you?
So, and then just out of the blue, somebody rang my mum who knew a person in Derby and knew my family, and said, we think, you know, it would be a good match, go and see this boy, go and see their family. So my mum, my papi, my brother, they all came down to see Devon and see the family, you know, saw him at the shop. Showed them at the business,
okay.
You know, because that's what we do, don't we? We're open all hours, and that's where they first met Devon. And my mum, I think she stalked out the day until she could come home as well and check out the home. You know, came back very excited, like she would do with everybody. She liked everybody anyway. All my family liked everyone.
Yeah.
And we actually did know each other, knew of each other at university.
Yes.
Devon had done accountancy, and I was doing my degree there. So we did know each other, and I think his father asked him whether he'd like to meet, you know, and he said no, absolutely not. But nobody listened, and I remember thinking, you know, if I do get married, then he needs to take his tash off of what I could remember. So I finished my degree sort of 21, 22, and this was going on. And at the same time, I landed my dream job.
Okay.
I absolutely landed my dream job. So what I wanted, I did a degree in chemistry, and I had 1 year out in ICI, in the labs. And that year taught me that I do not want to be working in a lab. What I want is, I want a company car, I want to be in sales, because actually, when I was about 15, 16, that's when I got my first proper job. I used to work at Richard shops, selling fashion.
Okay.
And that's when the whole world went mad. All the extended family went mad. They said, she's bringing the name in shame. My father was a successful entrepreneur. What was I doing going out to work?
Yeah. Were they objecting to you going to work or working for somebody else?
No, going to work.
Okay.
It was just going to work. And again, that's when I had my first job, and that was just after my father had passed away. In fact, some people said my mother had a breakdown allowing that. Right. But you know what she always said to me? She said, never let me down. Yeah. You know what she meant? She said, don't bring the family name in shame. So I owe a lot to my mother. So I always remembered that. So, so what happened is, after my mum came to see Devon. Then the week after they were to come and see me, and you have all the typical wear a heel because he's very tall, you're small, this, that, all of the things that normally happens. So when he walked in, he didn't have his tash, but he had a sad jumper on.
Okay.
And I thought, all right, he hasn't got that, but I can change the jumper. So because we knew each other, it was quite easy just to have a conversation.
Yeah, so it's more comfortable for you?
Yeah. So we're having a conversation, etc. And you know what I thought in my head? I thought of all the people I've met, and I thought, you know what, he's the best of a bad lot. No, I didn't. But you know what, I actually thought, you know, you have to think about everything. You have to make some compromises. And I just thought, yeah, you know, he's a slightly different person to me. I knew his past, etc. And then as we were sitting in the room, he said to me, I really need to tell you something, because I'd got my job now. I'd got my first class honours degree.
Yeah.
He said, my family are really strict. You will not be able to have a career.
Wow.
Okay. He says, you're never going to be able to go, you can come to our business. You're not going to be able to work outside the family house. Very traditional. You know, it's about the roti needs to be on the table, etc. And the other thing is, whilst I was growing up, I didn't go in the kitchen and make all the rotis and everything, but my mum was a fabulous cook, cooking all the time. So you learn in so many ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, I learned all my cooking skills subliminally from what was happening in the house. And he said, you know, this is what it's going to be. I want to tell you. He said, but we'll be fine. But I just want to tell you what the compromise is.
How did that make you feel?
And I went, oh, you know what, it's fine. I thought, yeah, I said, it's okay. Because you know what, now you can imagine it's probably about 6-7 years now. And I feel like the pressure is really on.
So the pressure to get married,
Oh,
to say yes, is far greater than your career.
Oh,
you
God,
won't sacrifice anything.
Yeah. And,
wow.
And you know what, I think sometimes you just got to, and you know, I could feel this would be fine, but then you have to work hard at it. You have to, and what I thought is, okay, well, if I can prove that I can do everything, and I'll do the roti, I'll do the safai, I'll do everything, and make the roti, and then I'll be allowed to hopefully go, I'll win them round. And then he also told me something else. He said, the other thing is my mum's got breast cancer. So, you know, she's really quite serious, and, you know, we're going to have to get married quite quickly, etc. So we were just chatting. So on that day, within an hour, we decided that was it. And that was it. So on there, then everything, all the shuggins started.
It's all done.
That was all done and dusted.
Yeah.
And that was it. So then 6 months, then obviously I'd started my job, I was, and it was my dream job. I was a medical sales rep. Yeah. I was going in seeing doctors. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be in that field. I had my company car. It was amazing. I loved it.
Where were you based?
I was in Bradford, so I was doing Yorkshire.
Home,
yeah, so like home. And then I used to know all the doctors were our family friends. It was just what I dreamed of. And then I had to break it to my employer that actually I'm going to get married, and I'm not going to be able to work. And my trainer at the time went, there's no way, there's absolutely no way. No, I have to go and see your family. You know, really talented. And it's quite important to have mentors and people who can help you to sort of progress on.
Of course.
You know, so it's good to have those other people who can push you on a little bit and make you think. And she said, you know, you can't not work. And my sales were less like this. I was like really flying. It was just a duck to water, really. And slowly in that 6-month period, you know, that's what happened. I got to know Devon and his family more. They got to know me. And, you know, for me, I'm at home. I'm the wife, the daughter-in-law. I can do all of that because that's the culture I was brought up in. And I can also go out. So I sort of said, you know, I'll do everything if I can go to work. And they agreed.
So you almost had to get permission.
Yes.
From your husband and his family to be able to work.
Yes.
And follow this dream.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
How ludicrous does that sound today?
I know.
Yeah. That you have to ask somebody whether you can go out and follow this amazing career.
Yeah.
Okay, so you felt that you got your own way at that time, or was it still a compromise?
No, it was fine, because obviously then what happened is, yes, they agreed. I told my employer, because I'd done so well, they actually created a job role for me.
Okay.
So within 6 months, I was married. I got transferred in my job. I carried on my job, but we went on our honeymoon and I had to come back early because within a couple of days, my mother-in-law passed away. She literally just stayed alive for the wedding. So then, you imagine I'm 23. I have just moved, a new job, a new home, and I have the responsibility of my father-in-law. My sister-in-law was there, and the house I am in now, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And, now I really had to learn my roti making skills and all of this. But, and I used to just ring my mum, how do I do that? How do I do this? I remember it was going on in the background. And, that's how you learn, isn't it? If you're in at the deep end, you end up, you can do it. Whatever happens, you have to do it.
Yeah. If you're a survivor, and entrepreneurs are, aren't they? So like you said, jumping at the deep end, we'll learn how to swim, won't we?
Yeah.
Good. So now you've instantly got another family, and you're the woman of the house, aren't you? Because, mum-in-law's no longer around. Yeah. So what happens then? So
I carried on working, and I think, for me, work has given me that sanity. I don't think, I could ever just sit at home and be at home, even though family and home are very important. I needed to go out to work. As you can tell, I'm quite self-motivated and driven. So carried on working, and then I had my first daughter and went on maternity leave. So I'd been working for this time now for my employer for a number of years. And whilst I was on maternity leave, there was an opportunity that came up, and I decided that I wanted to now be promoted. And somebody had said to me, why don't you go for that promotion?
Okay.
And I hadn't actually thought about it because I was doing really well at the level I was working at. I was always a top salesperson, etc. And then that's why it's important to have mentors who can push you and make you think a little bit differently. And I decided, okay, then I'll do this. And I went on for this promotion whilst I was on my whilst I was on maternity leave. And I didn't get the job. Okay. And that was just like, oh gosh, that's devastating. And then I just finished my maternity leave, went back, and that's when I dawned upon me that, right, okay, that was a turning point, not getting that position. I went to other interviews, and I thought, I'm sitting here, and I'd worked for my company for 8 years now, and I thought I could then go and work for somebody else, for them to make the decision on if I'm good enough or not. I thought, I'm never going to go and work for anybody else ever again.
So in that moment, how did it make you feel? Because you're a top salesperson.
Yeah.
Right? Not top saleswoman,
yeah.
top salesperson.
Yeah.
But they still deny you promotion.
Yeah.
What did you think was the cause of that? Why do you think you made those
I think, probably people said, it was your face didn't fit, predetermined. I mean, I didn't even go back for the feedback, but I remember they're saying too autocratic, too risk-taking, etc. Because you have to be a certain mould, don't you? But all those attributes which were negative, they're all entrepreneurial.
They are indeed.
So, you're either an entrepreneur or you're a worker.
Yeah, but large corporations can't take people like us, can they? Because you're thinking out of the box, and you're suggesting things, and it makes people feel uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that moment, you decided that you're not going to seek advancement in a career with another company, that you're going to set up on your own. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so what did you do next?
So then what I did have, in fact, this was my second daughter. So I'd had my first daughter and I carried on working, and this is when I had my second daughter. What I did get from the pharmaceutical industry was great training. And that's where my business idea came from. So I was a medical sales rep, and I was selling drugs legally, seeing doctors. And I was selling a statin, which is for lowering cholesterol. Yeah. And statins were all the big rage in 2000, 2001, because there was clinical trials that had shown if you've had a heart attack or a stroke, then your cholesterol must be lower to prevent a further event. And what we'd shown in this country, we were quite poor at this. So I used to go to see my doctors, and there were guidelines saying this is what you need to do. And I'd say to my doctors, like, you need to find these patients and then you need to treat these patients. And they'd agree, yeah, that's fine, that's what we'll do. And I'd go back and I'd say, well, did you treat these? Nothing had changed. And I thought, this is crazy. How can I make this happen? How can I make this happen? So I loved computers, always loved computers. Even my final year dissertation was computer based. I wrote a program on the BBC computer on catalytic hydrogenation, and my university sold it to other universities in the end. I'll never be able to do that now. I don't know how I did it then. But I loved computers, so I self-taught myself the GP systems. And again, this is breaking the rules. I'd ask my GPs, could I find those patients for them on their system? And they'd go, yeah, it's fine, go on. Can you imagine now? They'd go on the system.
I know.
And I'd go on there and I'd learn it and I'd find these patients. So give me all the patients with a heart attack. I said, right, doctor, these are all your patients. They'd start recalling them in for the clinics. They'd be tested. And then my sales were going through the roof.
Wow.
And I thought, do you know what? This is a great business opportunity. And then at the time, the government had launched an incentive. Points mean prizes.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is doctors got paid on the number of targets they'd hit. So X% of patients with a heart attack are on a statin.
Mm-hmm.
Their cholesterol's been lowered. So it's like, so I thought, okay, I've got a business idea. My company could go and provide clinical audit services where we would identify the patients
Mm-hmm.
who are at risk of heart disease. They in the process would get treated with a statin, and doctors would benefit because their points mean prizes.
That's right.
And patients would benefit because they're on the right medicine.
Okay.
So to
Win-win, right?
Sorry?
Win-win, right?
Win-win-win.
Yeah.
So to cut a long story short, I got myself in front of Pfizer, which is the world's biggest company, who had
That's
a world biggest brand with Lipitor.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained how my company, with all my staff, who were none at the time, would be able to deliver a service for them, and how it would benefit everyone. And obviously, if they are the biggest brand, if you increase the market share, then your brand will naturally increase as well.
Of course.
And I did manage, before I got in front of the brand manager, do a sort of like a pilot in a local area, and they'd seen the benefit. And again, you'd never get away with anything now like this. And I did, and I walked out of there with my first contract, because they said, that was in July, and they said, what we'd like you to deliver 800 practices by December. It was like £500,000 contract. And I thought, oh my God, now I've really got to put it together. I started employing, doing all those things. That's how it started.
So at what point did you give up your job?
So that I'd already left.
You'd left by then?
I'd already left.
Yeah.
I had decided what I was going to do.
Okay.
So this was it. And because I'd been selling a statin, obviously I knew people in the industry. I managed to get myself, as I said, it was a long story, in front of Pfizer.
So let me just take you to, maybe it's a side issue, but it's a big thing for me. So there you are, you've got 2 children.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing all the cooking and cleaning at home.
Yeah, roti has to be, Mum said, no matter how successful you are, make sure the roti is on the table. Yeah. And literally that's what I did. I used to make sure the roti, I stop, make sure that everything is done for home and work around the clock.
Yeah. So you're really doing 2 or 3 jobs, aren't you? Because people struggle these days, you and I both know families, a child comes in, there's about 5 or 6 different people looking after that child. Yeah. So did you have any help at home?
No, because it really wasn't seen the thing to do.
No.
You've got to do it yourself.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So you've decided now you want to set up your business, and did you get support from home? What did your husband think?
It was fine, because obviously I was working.
Yeah.
And for me, I worked out, because when I first set out, I had done a little bit of some consultancy training, etc. And I thought, well, if I do about 2 or 3 days of that pays for my same salary, etc. But then when you've made a choice, failure is not an option. And I don't think my husband and my father really understood what my business was about. But, it was fine. That's what I was going to do.
Did that help you, that they didn't actually know what you were going to do?
I suppose in some ways, yeah, because there's no interference there. I'm running my own business and it's down to me to make that work.
Yes.
You know, it's entirely down to me.
Did you get anybody's opinion? You talked about mentors, and you do mentoring yourself, as do I. So, and we realise the value. So was there anybody that was inspiring you or mentoring you at this point?
No, not at all. But remember what I said is, you know, for me, I was always going to be an entrepreneur, wasn't it? It was in my genes. My father was an entrepreneur. It was always business in the family. It was all about business. So I was destined to one day set up my business. Okay. And then I came into a family. We were always also running a business.
That's right.
It's all about business.
Yes, yes. So it's in the blood, right?
Yeah.
So you set up,
yeah,
and do really well?
Well, so I set up to start with in my bedroom, and on those early days I was going out and doing everything, but that's how you learn. I think it's really important that you know every aspect of your business, you know, because, you know, things happen, people let you down, etc. You've still got to be able to pick those up. You can't do everything yourself, so obviously I started employing, but it was a really good lesson in finance, in this and that. And you know what, I learnt the hard way. I wasn't the best manager, leader, because as an entrepreneur you're a control freak, and then you learn how to manage people, you learn all of that.
Yes.
You know, you don't know all of that to start with. And what makes people tick, how to motivate people, how to, you know, have staff who are going to be on there continually working with you with your vision. So all of that happened, and then I went from my bedroom to buying my first office, 5,000 square feet.
Wow. So you actually bought, not rented?
No, I bought. So what happened again is, you know, I was very lucky. I managed to get into a big corporate company, but I think what I realised is to grow, I needed perception, you need a good brand, and I needed to employ staff. And my first staff were obviously working from home, but this is where I needed to expand.
So you realised, having that corporate background, that must have helped you,
yes.
that you need to seem like a proper corporate, sizable business to win contracts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Pride Park, buildings were just going up, and this was a place to be. So I used to drive around there, and for me, when I want something, I focus my attention on it, and I'm not going to stop until I've got it. I thought, if I'm going to have an office, it's going to be here. And there was one plot, it was front facing, it was next door to the Mercedes-Benz showroom. Obviously Mercedes is so, you know, it's so like, everybody's got a Mercedes. My dad had a Mercedes, so that's where it was going to be, next to the showroom. And it was great positioning, and it hadn't even gone up yet. So I rang the agent, and he said, oh no, sorry, that one's sold. And I continued to ring him, and then one day he rang me because it had fallen through. So I managed to go from, and what I didn't realise actually is, you know, I didn't take a bank loan or anything like that. I was very profitable, and I was actually collecting a lot of cash.
Sure.
You don't actually realise, because there's nobody to benchmark yourself against, is there?
And your overheads are low, you're working
from
home.
Yeah, and I had the cash, and at that time I managed to get a mortgage, which I'd never done before, and just with 10% deposit. Yeah. And I managed to buy what was a £700,000 office at the time. And then it was my father-in-law said, you know, because I was looking for a smaller one, and he said, well, why don't you get a bigger one? You could rent it, the top floor. And that's what I did. 2,500 square feet I rented, and downstairs was the office. So I managed to get my first office.
Fantastic.
And then it sort of went from there. You know, we started working with more companies, directly with the NHS. I built up a national team who would be field-based, who would go into the doctors' practices where we'd be doing the work. And then I remember I got contacted by the Makers of Secret Millionaire. So I got contacted by the Makers of Secret Millionaire, and I remember the first time I was very much into, you know, just making money. And they came and I said, no, I'm not going to do this. But actually, you know, my dad was very, very successful. Nobody remembers him for his wealth, but for what he did for others. Okay. And, you know, from a young age, that actually did rub off on me. and you don't realise it until later.
Yeah,
all these things
are going on subliminally, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just waiting.
So, and I remember when I got my first job as a Saturday girl in Richard's shops, every month until I got my job, I would donate £100 to Oxfam.
Wow.
You know, and people say to me about my dad, you know, they said, you know, what a difference he made to our lives. And it was like silly little things. One of my cousins, he'd gone and bought them a video, their first video, or he'd gone and put dishwashers in people's houses, or would help them along. It was all these things. And so I was doing all those things. And then when I watched that program, I thought, you know what, this is a really good program. And then I went to a women's trip to Mumbai with a group of women, and it was all about learning about business, etc. And then one day we went to charity. We went to visit lots of charities, and I was inspired by a woman who'd left the UK, gone over there, and she'd set up the National Spastic Society. The name was changed now. And what she did is, when she went over there, she had a child who was disabled, cystic fibrosis. And what she did, when she went over there, because the child was disabled, he had no rights to education. So she changed it so that whether you're able or disabled in India, you have a right to education. It took her 35 years.
So she changed the law?
Changed it.
Wow.
And then she expanded and did this charity, national. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. All I'm doing is making money. I need to be doing things to be helping others, etc. So when I can remember coming back on the plane, I thought, I wish I'd done that program. It might help me to get into a bit more charitable work, or I need to do something different.
So you said no initially to
Yeah.
them? Okay.
And then just as I got back, a couple of weeks later, they contacted me again and said, would you do it? And I said, actually, you know what, I will.
You were ready?
I was ready then. And that's why, you know, if you want to be successful, you have to be passionate about whatever you're doing. If you're passionate, you will be a success.
Okay.
Don't do it because, it's a new thing to do. So I went and did that program, and it was quite life-changing, even though it was like a social experiment on TV. I met people, I met ladies, and for me, I gave to causes, I suppose, who resonated with me, empowering women. I actually ended up giving money to an organisation who did lots of building self-esteem for young girls between 16 to 25, when that's quite an important time. So I gave money there, and the others was actually a doctor's practice who was setting up, it was for asylum seekers, support and all of this sort of stuff, because those are the things that were sort of important to me. And I carried on working with that charity, and we rolled out programs in Derby as well in the council. We got some awards for some of the work we were doing. And then I got approached by a global charity to head that and chair that their centenary year fundraising. The target was 10 million, and they approached me and said, would you be our chair? This is what we want to do. It was a global girls fund. You know, that comes from Girl Guiding.
Yeah.
And it was and I said yes. So I was also then got into more charity work, and the target was to raise 10 million in 5 years. And we did it. We and again, it was just like business. Our corporate signature sponsor was UPS. They gave us $2 million. But you know, through that, I got to meet royalty. I had the UPS I met the number 1 and 2 from Atlanta. It was just phenomenal through all that work I was doing. And then at the same time, I got approached by somebody who'd set up because this was in the recession now, 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
So I'd obviously set up my business in 2001. I'd moved office. I'd built up a lot of cash. We had no bank loans, no nothing. You know, it was all self-funding. And I then, at that same time as taking on this role, all businesses were going pop. So I got approached by somebody who, unfortunately, their company had grown very fast from 0 to 700 staff, and the banks were pulling their funding, so they were going to have to close.
Okay.
So I got approached by them on the Friday to say, would I lend them some money? We got 700 staff to pay on Monday, otherwise it could be all over.
Right.
And without any due diligence or anything, I said, okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an equity stake.
Wow, great.
So that was another crazy thing I did. I did that, and on the Monday I was a co-owner of a security company with 700 staff. On the Monday everybody loved me. I was a saviour. On the Tuesday I think I was probably the most hated person. You know.
Why was that?
Because I was an outsider.
Yes.
I was an outsider. I didn't know anything about business. I did. You know, I didn't know the industry, but you know what? What I did know is I did know a lot about business.
Yeah.
And actually I was able to apply all the lessons I learnt into that business and get it where it needed to be. And after 2 years, I got all my funds back, what I'd invested, exited. And it was a really, really hard experience. It was a very male chauvinistic business, completely different industry. But you know what, it doesn't matter. The principles of business are all the same.
Always the same, aren't they?
Always the same. But what it did teach me was about buying and selling companies.
Okay.
Taught me all of that. It gave me more lessons. So after I exited my company, and then in 2012, and actually the head office, I'd moved into my building that I had, and then exited. And it was a recession. Empty floor, and I thought, right, who's going to take 2,500 square feet now? What am I going to do? Because I'd just exited, and now I had space.
They were going to leave.
Yeah. That was what was going to happen. They were going to go back to their base where they'd started from. I thought, oh gosh, now what am I going to do now? So I thought, right, I've got this space. Why don't I separate it out and let me think about my own business experience? I'll create something else. If I make it into smaller businesses, smaller units, I've got more chance of renting it. Now is a recession. You know, there might be startups. And that started my second business, the Oberoi Business Hub.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I did. And within weeks, I was getting people coming, because you're spreading your own risk, but people were looking to come without going into long leases into serviced office environment. Okay. And we were giving 1 month, 3 months, 6 months or 12 months. But by doing that, we were able to charge a lot more rent because we're doing everything.
Yeah.
So that, and then I thought about what else did I need when I was setting up my own business. I needed a brand, I needed an address, I needed somebody to answer my calls. So I set up the Oberoi Business Hub. So we were doing physical space. We started doing call answering on a small scale, because I remember I used to go out, I used to leave it on the answer machine, come back, listen to the messages. Right. You know, it's strange, you wouldn't think you'd be doing that now. I mean, where was my mobile? Why wasn't, I don't know, what you know, you think, what was going on? So, and then obviously we were in Pride Park, which was the place to be. So I thought we could do virtual address. And there was space there, and I thought, let's turn some of it into conference suites. And then that just took off at another level, which meant I ended up in the end buying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings of similar size, 7,500, 5,000 square feet. So, you know, it's one challenge that makes you think different, and then you come out better.
Yeah, because as you've got empty space, so you're an entrepreneur, you think, what can I do with it? Yeah. So out of adversity comes opportunity.
Absolutely.
So that was during the last financial crisis, right?
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about businesses that are set up during recession.
Yeah.
So during, you know, not only your business, companies like Uber, you know, WhatsApp didn't exist without that last recession. So now we're facing challenging times again, Kavita.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how deep and how long do you think the economic downturn that we're facing is going to be?
I think we're not going to get back to normality for another 2-3 years, 22, 23. You know, for truly entrepreneurial people in business, it's a good time because it pushes you hard and makes you think. I already know some businesses now, you know, their opportunity has come because of the pandemic. And if you go back, you know, Walt Disney was created in the Depression. Hewlett Packard. So what you've got to do is you've got to change is good. You know, everything I've ever done has come as a result of change. And, you know, I think about now, what have we done as businesses has changed. So if I talk about my 2 different businesses, Oberoi Consulting, we still work with GP practices and pharmaceutical companies. And actually, we're in September now, and in March, even me, I was thinking, geez, what we're going to do? You know, my team aren't going to be able to go to GP practices. Some of the pharmaceutical companies may stop investing in some of the projects. And even at the end of last year, we decided that we were going to do things differently, and in terms of scale, how are we going to do it instead of relying around people who are always travelling to practices. And we thought, okay, if we can get a secure N3 connection, which is now called a HSCN, which allows, because you've got to pass lots of conformities and everything, it's lots of compliance around it. But if we could pass that, then we could then also use technology to enable us to what we needed to do. So when end of March came, that really escalated. Yes. We were already on the journey, we were doing all the compliance and all of that, and then eventually in about June, July, we got it. And now, then doctors started logging on from home to their GP practice, to their databases. And before, they would have been a bit wary. Oh no, you can't do that. You can't come into our practice. But that's actually, right. Now it's a norm. Yeah. So now we've just opened up a whole new service provision because we've put that technology in place. But also the world has changed.
Yes.
And we've just won new contracts because of it, because they're going, oh, do you want to log? Yeah, that's fine. Before, they never would have said that.
Tell me something. So I obviously understand being an entrepreneur myself, so lots of these opportunities have come, but your timing seems impeccable. But I think from experience, you start to get to know what it is that's going to happen. So late last year, I was delivering my training in hotels in London, and people were complaining that they couldn't get to the date or they couldn't get to the venue because of geography. You know, people in Scotland were saying, Kam, when are you going to come and do your events in Manchester and Wales and all of this? So I thought at the end of the year, I'm going to review all this. So I didn't do an event in November, and I planned not to do an event in January. And I sat down and I thought, how can I overcome these 2 issues that I've got? And I thought, well, geography is easy. You know, deliver it over Zoom.
Yeah.
So that's great. And then in terms of timing, you know, we can record the thing. So in January, I turned my business totally around from doing events and delivering training live to thinking I will deliver this over Zoom. And the 30th of January, we signed up our first client.
Yeah.
And who would know that, you know, 6 weeks later, the whole world will be going over to Zoom.
I mean, and the other thing is, like with the other as part of my business, you know, we do calls for behalf of 300 companies across the country. And, you know, a few weeks before, I thought, you know what, I can just feel something's going to happen. And I'd always said to our suppliers, can we do this from home? No, we can't. No, we can't. Never ever take no for an answer. Sat down with our suppliers, with our phone supplier, with our IT supplier, said, right, we've got to make this happen. We've got to make this happen. And we did. Honestly, if we'd have gone into lockdown the week before, we might have been in trouble. But I managed to move everybody to home working because I needed the same staff to provide the same quality service.
Yes.
And so they started taking their calls from home when we were in lockdown. So it never affected the companies. But then the next challenge was some companies started cancelling because they couldn't physically operate. For example, physios, chiropody practice, they were shut.
Yes.
So we'd made all this investment and now we were losing business. And again, people think, oh my God, right, we're not going to invest. You know what? Always invest in your business, especially at a time of a crisis. So I said to the team, right, half of you are going to work on lead generation. Half of you are going to support the clients that are coming in, because obviously we'd had less calls.
Yes.
Because clients had cancelled. And half of you are going to work on new opportunities. Let's think about all the industries. Perhaps when it's normal times, we're taking lots of calls. We did that. We started with lawyers, actually. We got them hunting. They started sending emails. They started doing outbound calls. And post-lockdown, those clients, we got new contracts. And for us now, for them now, it's a norm.
Yes.
Because their staff, they still can't have them on the premises. They can't have the receptionists on the premises. So we've come out better, stronger. Oh, now we've recruited more staff and we're looking
Yes.
for more staff.
Yes.
So challenge is what drives entrepreneurs.
Yes. And the thing that I've picked up is that you don't take no for an answer.
Absolutely,
do you?
no.
So how does it feel? Because I get the same challenges, obviously, is that you've got these so-called experts telling you, Cam, this can't be done. And you're saying, but why not?
Yeah.
And do you feel that that's, because I always think that I go back to when I was 14, 15 years old, because as a child, nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
You just can't understand why
Yeah.
somebody can't afford something, why can't this can be done. Is that the same for you? Do you go back and think, why?
For me, I think I'm just really really motivated and self-driven, and for me, it's not no, it's how.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we're going to do something. An entrepreneur often will go and do it first. They've sold it, got no idea how they're going to do it, and work backwards.
Yes.
I've always sold everything. It's in my head. I'm like here, everybody else is here, and then they're playing catch up.
Yeah.
So that's how I am. That's how I'm built.
So if I was sitting watching this now,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about starting my business.
Yeah.
Obviously very fearful, some
Yeah.
people, and they want to know the whole process. But what you seem to be saying, and I agree with you by the way, is that you don't need to know it all. Work it out as you go
I never
along.
had a business plan.
No.
I never wrote a business plan.
No.
I'm terrible. I don't think I could write a business plan.
Yeah.
But what I'm good at is I got a vision, I got a passion, and the other thing is people. People buy people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got to be very credible in what you're doing. You've got to deliver, and you've got to treat every client as if it's your own business.
Yeah.
And that's what I instill in all my people. Whatever service we're doing, you drive it like it's your own business. Really care, be passionate about that. And success will come. I've never worked for money. Money is a byproduct of success. So, if you're passionate about what you're doing and you've got belief in that, then it'll be successful.
Yeah. And the money will come. Won't
Money
it?
will come, yeah.
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 And that's the other thing, isn't it? When you're younger and you're hungry,
Yeah.
perhaps you put money much further up
Yeah.
the list.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins talks about it. I think he puts money at something like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And he said, I would put it lower,
Yeah.
even than that.
Yeah.
So that's the advice that you'd give?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so if you provide value,
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar talks about it. So if you help enough people get what
Yeah.
they want,
Yeah.
you'll get what
Absolutely,
you want, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And always help, if you can help. I do a lot of charity work. I'm just setting up a foundation now as well. I want to try and give back as much as I can. And if you do good, you'll get good.
Yes. So you've been doing quite a lot of charity work during lockdown, haven't
Yeah,
you? So
yeah.
tell us about it.
So obviously I did a lot of global work before, and then I started doing a lot of work locally because I sit on the local council board.
Mm-hmm.
And about 5, 6, 7 years ago, somebody said that, we've got children in our city going to school hungry. And I
Yeah.
went, no way. I said, how can that be? And then I looked and I worked with the council, and they really were. And I said, let's do something about it. And I used to have meeting after meeting, took a few years. And I said, look, forget it. Let me just pilot. I'll fund a few schools. Let's see the impact. And that's what I did. We managed to work with a charity who works with surplus. So like if something's out of date or something's counterfeit, they have lots of surplus.
Yep.
And then they try and put it to good use.
Mm-hmm.
And through working with them, we managed to get the cost of a cereals down to £15 for a year for one child.
Wow.
And they would do all the distribution. So I managed to get the food at a low cost. And then we worked with Derby County Community Trust, who's a charity, to be our custodians for our money, because I didn't want to then get into setting up a formal
Sure.
charity for that. And then I thought, right, who can pay for this? Business. The children are the future of business. And we've got low educational attainment levels here. Food is part of the mix. You think about if you're hungry in the morning, you can't concentrate.
That's right.
So it could contribute to that. And that's just grown. We're in 17 schools now. And during lockdown, Marcus Rashford did a campaign. So, on the back of that, we invigorated that campaign. But I had people nationally give money to that. So now, we're going again now in September. And there's children back at school. And we've got money there now to sustain some of those clubs.
Fantastic. So the charitable work's getting bigger?
Yeah.
You're doing more and more of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me now, you're one of those very, very few individuals that's been given an OBE.
Yes.
So how did that come about and how did it feel?
Well, I mean, it was amazing when you get the letter. It's like, oh my God, what's this? The Cabinet Office, the brown letter, and it's like, wow. And I didn't actually understand what it meant. I had to go and show my PA at the time. And she said this, and I was just, it was unbelievable. So I got my OBE for services to charity, services to entrepreneurship and business. And again, I'd done a lot of charitable work. I'd set up a scheme with a college. I was at Burton College, where I was patron, and that was about getting learners into work whilst they were studying. And I took on a few of the students from there, my own business. And the idea was that, you know, if you've got the experience, then it's more likely you're going to get a job. And through that scheme, we got about 100 children into work, into different companies. So I was doing a lot of charity work around that. And then I set up the business up. So it all sort of came from all the sort of work that I was doing. It was a surprise and a great honour.
Fantastic. How do people around you react to you receiving that award? Friends, family and business
Yeah,
people?
I think everybody was really proud. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So no naysayers?
Sorry?
No naysayers?
Not that, well, not to myself, maybe, probably. Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell me then, so you've done all of that. So how's a family life evolved from the Kavita that used to make roti for everybody, and as well as running her business?
It's still the same Kavita that makes roti for everybody.
Yeah.
6 o'clock, my father needs his roti on the table, and that's still there.
Right, fantastic. So those things haven't changed
No,
at all?
things haven't changed.
But do you still need permission to do things?
Probably less permission now.
Okay.
A little bit of permission, but not as much.
Okay. So what are your hopes for the future? What happens now?
I think obviously now it's about the next generation. My own daughter's going to be getting married in a couple of years. You know, it's about the children, and you know, and I can already see some of the lessons and the things I've done. I can see that naturally in some of the traits and some of the things that they're doing. So it's about that. Okay. You know, it's about the family. You know, family is key. And yeah, you know, and as an entrepreneur, you're not going to slow down. There's probably going to be other new opportunities, perhaps when we talk in a few more years.
Yeah. Do you ever talk about the retirement word?
Oh, what's that?
No, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I sold, as we were talking before the show, I sold my trading business in 2018. And I thought about retiring for about 3 or 4 days. And I thought, good God, how on earth can I ever do that?
Yeah.
I've got a solicitor's practice outside my old office. Really admired them. They're an African family that came across in 1972. So I'm still dear friends with the son. But the father was coming to the office, and he would ring up occasionally, you know, "Beta, come and have a cup of tea." And I think he was 88 or 89 when he passed. And he said, "If I don't come to the office, I feel ill."
That's right.
You know, and he'd drive in for a couple of hours,
Yeah.
and he'd probably call somebody like me every day.
Yeah.
But he still felt the need to come, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I always say, and you ask me again, you know, what do you do, little as possible? Does it ever feel like that you're working?
You know what, they say, if you're doing what you love, you don't ever feel like you're working. I do feel like I'm working. I work really, really hard.
Yeah.
You know, people say, well, luck, you make your own luck. The harder you work, the luckier you'll become.
Yes.
And, you know, don't think that successful people are just successful. They work very, very hard.
They do indeed. But they sometimes make it look easy, right?
Yes. Yeah, to the outside world, they may feel like it's easy. Oh, they've done that now, done that now. But they're actually working very hard.
Yeah. Behind the scenes, right?
Behind the scenes.
Okay, so a couple of things now. You know, our program's all about inspiring the youngsters, and you've obviously done lots of that throughout your life. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self that's sitting there today?
I think obviously, you know, don't let anybody else set out your destiny. You are responsible for your destiny. Believe in yourself. Compromise. I think it's really important to compromise, and don't lose that focus. You've got to be really focused on that end goal. And you know, again, I think you have to also think about your environment, because if you've got a happy and content environment, then you can do what you want to do. That's what I had to do. If I didn't do the things I needed to do at home, then I wouldn't have been able to work. So you have to have a little bit of compassion and empathy, but don't forget you and yourself. And sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish as well, so otherwise you do get, you know, taken advantage of. So, you know, that is important. And over the last few years, you know, I've travelled so much more, taken holidays, taken out some of that time. But yeah.
Okay. How much better or worse has the fact that you're a female been throughout your career?
I don't see myself as like I'm a female. I just feel myself as a, you know, I never think, oh, I'm a woman, I'm disadvantaged. You know, I don't see that. And
Never seen that.
No,
never seen that.
No,
Yeah.
so some people go, oh, like I'm a woman, so this is this, or I'm going to be this. I don't. I think it's the best person for the job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I employ a lot of women, but I employ them because they're the best people for the job. Or if I've seen somebody who's a different gender, I'm looking at the best person for the job.
Okay. Do you think? I mean, I don't ever feel that anybody's discriminated against me. If they've not given me something, so be it. Do you think people today, want to play the victim card too easily?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you haven't got something or haven't won something, you need to look at why.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because of there'll be some reason there as to why. And you think you need to just step back a little bit instead of thinking, well, X, Y, and Z, or it's because I'm a woman, or it's because of my ethnicity, etc.
So for you, that doesn't exist?
Well, if it does, I don't use that as a reason for failure. I'll probably look at, why didn't we get there? Why didn't we win it?
Yeah.
Do an analysis.
Yeah. I mean, there's reasons, aren't there? There is discrimination, we can't deny that, and it exists. And I'm sure both you and I have been victims of that at some point. But we don't carry it like a badge of honour.
No.
That say, look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, are people made of softer stuff these days, that they won't take rejection, that they want to run and look at these kind of excuses?
I think so. And I think what you've got, if you're an entrepreneur, you're very resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So you need resilience. So, whatever you're doing, because you're going to get a lot of knockbacks. It's like this. Entrepreneurship is like this. It's not like that.
No, not at all. Okay, so we've got, as you and I both agree, and I think the whole country's waking up to the fact that we're going to be in an almighty recession. So again, if I was an existing business, or if I was thinking about setting up, what advice would you give to me?
I think what you've got to do is think outside the box. You've got to change the way perhaps you're delivering a business. And we've seen lots of businesses perhaps who were doing alcohol, they started making gel. So there are going to be opportunities, but you might have to think about how you, if it's the same business, how you're going to redeploy that business. So that's what you've got to do. And I think you've got to look for the newer opportunities. And as I said, change is good. Businesses that don't change fail anyway. Recession or no recession.
No. So if you're willing to change...
Yeah, if you're willing to...
You're not going to fail.
It's the survival of the fittest. Darwin's theory, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, those that adapt the best.
Yeah.
Right, that's where it goes. Kavita, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm sure that there'll be many, many questions that come from the audience. How do people contact you? Because you work with young people, and I'm sure that one of your charitable organisations could help people. How do people contact you?
You can follow me on social media. So on Instagram, at Kavita Oberoi, Twitter, LinkedIn, and obviously I've got my websites out there, which I've got contact forms on, kavitaoberoi.com. So those are all the places to contact me.
Yeah, you're very visible, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you guys, there's no excuses for not being able to find this lady if you want some help and advice, because the first thing that I did in reaching out was send you a message on LinkedIn, didn't I?
You did, yes.
Right? Even though I knew you.
Yes.
And as a business person, you want to be approached properly, don't you?
Absolutely, yes. It's very important. The approach is important, and you know, I get lots of people writing letters, sob stories, etc. You know, and that there's going to be piles and piles of letters. You know, and I do reach out to different people, and I have, but it's been because of their approach.
But look, we've come to the end of our time, so hopefully we'll do this again at some point.
Yeah.
So I want a big thank you. Thank you for having us in your home.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate that. So it's a Saturday that we're recording this, so
Yes.
giving up some family time for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So guys, you know, it's come to the end of our time again. An absolutely wonderful, inspiring story. There's no excuses. You know, Kavita Oberoi looks like a very gentle, very demure kind of lady, but believe me, there's a heart beating in there of steel. She will never take no for an answer. And resilience came out today. And when people say no to you, it's not no forever. You know, when the building that she is actually in, and most of that business park that's now owned by her company, originally the agent said, sorry, it's sold. But, you know, she refused to take no for an answer. So build up your resilience. We've got some hard times to come. So until next time, thank you for watching.